On behalf of Klaus and all of our colleagues here, very good to see you. Very good to welcome back to London Nathalie and Hans.
Thank you.
Good to see you again. It's been a few weeks since the opening. It's quite nice to have this opportunity to reflect really on this show of new work that you've made and think about it with a little bit of distance. So I think we'll talk about the show and how different it is and yet what continuities there are with your other work. But just to begin, you've done a few things, of course, since the show opened. I think you were in Detroit not long ago.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. How did it come about, the meeting in Detroit? You were there for the animation show.
Yeah, we were there for the animation show. And then they were interested in doing a festival in Detroit called Electricity, where they have different works outside in the city, because Detroit is, well, they have so many problems in Detroit, and they want to get people downtown and get people moving in the city. So they have this outside festival, nighttime festival.
Is it in the so-called center of the city?
Yeah, it's in the central part of town, which is usually completely desolate.
Yeah.
And now 2 nights they have this festival. And we were screening a film called The Black Pot that Nathalie made outside on the wall on the, what is it called? The DIA, the Detroit Institute of Arts. Yeah. And yeah, so we had like a big, in the courtyard, big screening on the wall, and I also did a concert outside. So during the night.
Detroit's a big music city.
Yeah, it's a big music city, and especially for electronic music. So I thought it would be very nice to do this concert. And Nathalie made visuals for my music, so we worked the other way around. So usually she does the video animation first, and I do music afterwards to the animations. But this time she has made. No, well, I made music and she made animations afterwards. Is this a new piece?
Because you did that a while ago, a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
was this new, or was this the same?
No, this is just like it's the same. That was the bridge over to the new work, I would say.
Yeah.
So but what was nice with it also was that Hans plays techno in clubs and stuff like that. But here, kids would come up because it's the only time like you can be out at night in Detroit. So kids and teens would come up and dance.
Yeah, that was very funny.
Sweet.
Yeah, the audience ranged from 5 to 55.
Right.
No, well.
So do you think you'll go back? Have you got a firm fan base now in Detroit?
I hope so. I really like Detroit, so it would be very nice. But it's nice, and the animations Nathalie made, they are synchronized to the music I play, so and the work is semi-abstract, because the previous animations were with characters and narration, and this is like a bridge between that. So
I think we should come back to that, because that relates obviously to the work that you're showing in the other gallery. So to talk about the music and the abstraction is one thing that I want to do, but also this month you've shown, or last month actually, you showed a kind of mini retrospective of your earlier work at the Palais de Tokyo. It's part of a group show, but it's a big presentation of how many films? Is it like 6 or 8 films?
7.
7 films, yeah.
Yeah, that was really, first I was really uncomfortable, and I was not so happy with it at all, and wished I had kind of said no, but then when we saw it, it was really nice. I'd become a little bit detached from it. It was interesting to not be that emotionally
invested.
Yeah.
Do you feel a distance now from that work, because it's very emotional work?
I do,
but you can look with a bit of objectivity on it.
Yeah, I do, and I think I look at it in a different way, in the same way that I would look with different eyes of myself a couple of years for like.
A few years ago.
Yes, sorry, I zoned out.
Yeah, but it can be difficult when we just installed this show, which is, I would say, the first one with this new direction of work, which.
Not really. I mean, the Black Pot that we did before was, but also,
and then go back again to the old work.
Yes. But you haven't repudiated the old work. It's just that you're doing something else. And
you don't ever know what comes back. I feel like it's kind of like a spiral. Like you start here, and then we did all this like quite figurative storytelling kind of work, and then you move really away from it, and then it's been around, and it's okay if it would come back, but in a different way. And Yeah, and
I was thinking that at some point it'll be interesting. You'll probably show them together in some way.
Yeah,
which
and
show some of the abstract work, and then because they're, again, I think we should talk about. They look on the face of it very different, but if you go beneath the surface, that some themes and obviously techniques are similar. So just seeing how that. I mean, maybe we can talk about that because the work here is different because it's mainly drawn animation. So that's different from the stop motion that the narrative films mainly used, and whereas most of the films are shown on a screen, projected, these are shown, the ground of the projection is different. Yeah. So they're the pots, and there's the tables. I suppose everybody's seen the show, and then the wall, and then the running birds. So different varieties of screening surface, and then obviously the big extension is into the object. The animation kind of becomes an object, like with the neon. So that's, on the face of it, very different from before. But there are sources like you've drawn forever, really. You've made drawn animations as some of your earliest work.
Yeah.
Talk about that. Does it feel like coming back to something that you're very familiar with, or is it a departure for you?
I don't know if I can answer the question completely. I was just thinking that I'm quite bad at everything. In a way, like I'm quite bad at drawing, and I'm quite bad at painting. Not great with sculpture either. But it's not. I'm not.
I can deny it, but
yes. Okay,
what
but
do you
well, I'm not skilled. I'm not skilled, and I feel like also before with the more storytelling work, it's always like a collapse, a building up, and then a collapse, and a building up, and a collapse. And I'm very interested in that, and I really, really, really love the process of working and seeing where it goes. Because for me, art is so much not knowing, it's so much about question. And
do you not know when you start a drawing? Does it just take its own life, or do you have a plan?
Yeah, with the drawings for this show, I kind of knew what I wanted, but then after a while, since it's such a slow process, even slower than with making with puppets, like you make a drawing in oil crayon, take a picture, and then I do another one, like kind of on top of it, and I scrape away the other one, and I take another picture, and and after a while, I just follow it. It's more like I follow it than having control over it. So I'm watching the tempo, but in really slow motion.
Something I think is very interesting. I think you can see that very clearly in the animations inside the pots.
Yes.
They all have very different physicality to them. One is very liquid, one is very slow and like, I don't know, stretchy, and it feels like you didn't control that. Or I don't know.
Well, I would really love to say that I did, but no, I didn't really.
It feels like it has its own physicality,
no, but in a way
and you just follow that.
Yeah, but in a way you control it. I think we've been talking about a lot about this, like how much control you really have over the work, or in life in general, and we have the illusion of, at least the illusion of control. But if you would look at it really closely, like when did you do the decision, and if you trace it back, and then no, like in a way I feel like I'm following. But it was the same with the old animations, because there I would follow the story, and it's, for me, it's
a little bit freer, because I guess with the others you'd have to have some. I mean, I don't know how.
Yeah.
Shouldn't you storyboard things?
No,
you're not at all.
No,
so you just go from one thing. But
no, but I have a very good memory, so I would have an idea. But as soon as the idea, and that is with this work as well, as soon as the idea is too clear, like too decided, like the work is about this, and I will go from here to here, there, and in the end it will look like this. If the end product is what was imagined to be, it has no value to me whatsoever. The process doesn't have a value, and the end product, I wouldn't want anyone to to have it or see it, or because it's not about that. You lose that, then it's just the answer to a riddle. But there is, like, not finding the answer, it's kind of finding the answer.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I guess that explains why you bother to use this incredibly difficult, time-consuming, laborious, back-breaking work. I mean, you know, Nathalie works on the floor still, kind of bending. It's very bad for you. Sometimes we have to.
Yeah. I'm going to change it. I'm going
to invest in a table.
Yeah.
But the point of it is that it has this sense of its own making. It's not like, you know, if you just do sort of computer graphics or something, and it's just a process that is kind of mechanical. It's very fought out and very hard won, and so it has, that's in some ways not just the technique, but it's the meaning of the work, isn't it? It's that it has to be inventing itself and struggling to find itself.
Yeah, and I think we have the questions quite often, like, well, couldn't you just do this in the computer? So that is one of my fears, like, oh my God, could I have done this in the computer in like 5 minutes, what I've been working on for months? But then the answer is actually no. Like, every time we try to steal a bit and like reproduce it, and every time I try to cheat, and I'm very bad with computers. Now it sounds like I'm bad with everything. But then Hans comes in and helps, and every time we try to cheat, it shows straight away, and you don't realize how incredibly advanced the eye and the brain is to recognize repetition. I mean, it is repetition. I mean, you could see, but for example, the pots, you look down and they are like 1 minute long, and then you see it starts over. But if you would just repeat one thing and kind of mix it into it, you would you notice it.
But it's like, I have a favorite techno song, and there's a sample that says, people create, computers simulate, sort of, but in German. And I think that's true. Like, you can't do it.
What is it in German? Does it sound different in German?
Yeah, it sounds much cooler in German. Yeah, you can simulate with a computer, but it's only a simulation. It's that's why you can't do it in the computer.
You can't do it. The other aspect of the show here that's, I guess, different or an evolution is the way you use objects, and you have used objects before. Sometimes you've taken the puppets that you've used for the film and you present them as sort of frozen in time, or you have props, or like with the Venice project, you had this extraordinary kind of installation, sculptural installation that related to the films, and with Parade also. But there is something different, isn't there? It's more like with that it was always external to the film, whereas now they seem to be merging into one, the objects.
Yeah, I think that, I haven't really thought about it, but I think that there's not so much difference. Like, if I think of it now, and when this show is done, and how I look at it, there is no difference between the different things. And before, there's always been like kind of a separation.
Yeah, now it's like it feels like you took the animation apart and spread it out in the room. Yeah. It's just a different version of the same thing, whereas before, as you said, it was.
Yeah.
So it wasn't. It's just an evolution, really, rather than a major shift in the work. I guess I'm thinking of how, for instance, the projection onto the tables. That's not something you've done really before, is it? That you've actually combined film and object.
No.
Yeah, not into one like that.
And I don't remember why. I don't remember why. It was extremely important, but yeah. It doesn't. But I think it's interesting that when you forget yourself why something was so important, because I mean, I have a general idea what the work is about for me, but then like the decision of it should be like this, I lost that. But that also makes the work still relevant, because then I'm going back and wonder about it. And
there are some quite rigorous but logical combinations of form and image, like the pots, I guess, are the vessels that you made in North Carolina. You did a residency there, and then the films are things that can be contained in vessels. So there's a nice circularity or logic. What are just run through the different there's peas and liquid.
Oh yeah. There's tea, peas, blood, soap, and yeah, rain, different things.
So is
different
that
materials, different.
But were you consciously trying to not illustrate, but there was a kind of story of containment, I guess, or a story, or did it just come rather naturally? That these were just the subjects that came to mind to fill those pots.
You know, right? You know where the idea came from.
I'm asking you.
No, I know, but I'm asking if I told you before, and I'm wondering if you're wanting me to tell the truth, or if I should have a cleaner version of it. So the idea is a really, really old idea that's been like gnawing in me for a really long time before the work became more abstract. And so I always been really interested in stories and fascinated with it, and kind of obsessed with it. So so from the beginning, the idea was coming from the Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, where they actually hide in the end. They hide in pots to ambush the Alibaba who had stolen the treasure. But the son's wife is so smart that she boils oil and pours the boiling oil onto them, and they boil and become mush in the pots. And I was always very, well, for me, like the treasure and the pots and all this, it's kind of like alchemy in a way. And it has interested me for years. And then when the work started going in a different direction, the fascination for this continued. So it started with the story, but then became about alteration and about what something really is. And that was about texture, stretchiness, and not keeping something down, something that would change the look of it all the time. And
so there is still, so again, maybe setting up this rather false dichotomy between your earlier work and this, what you've been doing the past year and a half or so. The earlier work is known for these short narrative films, and here it's not the same, but at the same time there's still a reliance on narrative, but you just embody it in a different way. Is that right?
Yeah, it's not about storytelling, but the storytelling is
there's a story behind it in some way.
For me, it's interesting though, because we didn't talk about this Alibaba backstory or like idea.
No, because that is.
Yeah. So for me, it was about the material. When I made the music, it's really about finding the right. We say like looking. I was so fascinated with the different materials and how they moved so differently. So for me, it was just about finding the right music or the right sound for each different thing. So I'd like to see them. When you go into the room, it's like bubbling up from each pot, different sounds. And you look down, and it's like a little microcosmos inside almost. So the story. Yeah.
No, the story is not important.
It's like an essence of a story, isn't it? It's turned into some essence of the idea.
It's a starting point for you, but for me, it wasn't the starting point.
Yeah.
So it's
One of the attractions of the earlier work for a lot of people is its directness and kind of ambiguity and violence. It's quite nasty, you know, some of the images, and this is less so. This is more gentle, more lyrical. You know, you're playing with beauty. Is that a departure, or is that just what you're doing now? Is it?
Well, I don't know. Because if I would know what was coming, how the future would be, I would already be there. So that's impossible to say. But well, the shift from the old work to the new work came. I think it had been going on. I think it was impossible to not change the work. I think that that would not have been possible. So if I were to stay in the old work, it would have been a lie. It would have been a construction, just to be too cowardice not to go on.
Yeah.
But
in theory, you could have made an infinite number of films,
yes.
but you had to do something different.
Yeah, no, but we were staying in Berlin for a really long time, and then we went back to Sweden for 1.5 years out on the countryside with no social community, like no friends, no nothing, and
it's quite pared down place, isn't it? Which I guess is
I mean, and there are houses around, but nobody lives in them. So it was basically just us, and we came there in the winter. I'm not from that area, but Hans is.
Yeah, it's where I grew up.
Yeah, and we came in November, and it was so desolate and so dark, like 3 hours of light every day, and you had the star sky, you had the forest, and you have a big lake, and it's a void. I thought of it as a void, and I would feel this feeling of vertigo being there and thinking that I had this fantasy dream of like solitude and how romantic it would be. And it wasn't. It was actually quite scary until you got used to it. And then I had promised Hans to make these visuals for him, and I spent 5 or 6 months in the basement, and I didn't see the sun because when I was finished working, it was dark outside. It wasn't in any light. We comfort ourselves with cakes every day. But it was fantastic. But I think for me it pushed the work. It pushed the work into something else. When I was done with the visuals, and having been there out in nothing, just I did 1 or 2 more animations, and then I just felt like I'm done. It's not that I don't like them or not appreciate them. It's just that when the feeling of I can't do this anymore, there's no urge to do it. And for me, the urge, I think, for the same for Hans, like the urge of doing something, not knowing why, but having to, like a really, really strong drive is so important. Really, and for me, I think without that, it would be much easier to do something that is not art, because art can be difficult.
I think time is very interesting in this perspective, because Nathalie was sitting 5 months doing this animation. It's so time consuming, and she sees it moving forward like so extremely slowly, and
time stretches out
so much. And when I do the music, it's the opposite. It's just this quick. Because I do, especially with the new work, which is not narrative in the music either, it's much more fluid. It's just like 2 chords changing over 10 minutes. And I have one thing and I change it in real time. I change the sound, I use different synthesizers, and I do work with effects. But for me, it's done in real time. So for me, it's super fast instead.
Which is has been a conflict between
because our work, she sits 5 months and I sit 2 weeks, and it's the same amount in the end.
But
bump into each other in different segments of time.
But we have like this talk, like, because he sees my agony, which is like kind of drawn out. Like you go into agony in the creative process, and then you go to highs, and it's so fantastic, and then it's agony again. And with Hans, it's like just a burst of agony and like,
but it's much quicker. It's the same but compressed.
And I see that, and I'm like, oh my God, you're working on this for 2 weeks, and I know that in 3 days the agony has gone to him feeling like
euphoria.
Euphoria.
But like the control you have, or the lack of control you have over these 5 months, what's happening, and it's interesting. I have the same control or lack of control when I'm recording it, because I do it in real time, and I think that's very interesting.
Whether this development was going to happen anyway and it just happened to happen there, or whether the circumstances you describe really made it happen, it does feel very precise. When I came to see you, one thing you hadn't talked about but I was very conscious of in this place, which is fascinating, is that it does feel very exposed and very bare, and even the colour of the houses, which is kind of red, it's out of the earth, isn't it? So everything is very much directly related to the earth and the reality, and you have to, like, we had dinner and you walked home about an hour and you could have died. You know, if you had sort of fallen asleep or something or stopped, you would have frozen.
Cold.
So this is very primal thing. And then you're talking about your process, which you'd make it sound like some kind of shamanistic retreat. You know, like
but it was like,
a cave.
yeah, because with the claymations, it was like the animation process was so much faster. But I would go into like first listening to music and then listening to all kinds of music. Hans would make me playlists, and then after a while I would like listen to some audiobooks, and that didn't really work. And then music again, and then after a while, like being too exhausted, you just have it quiet. And well, I think it's funny that Marina has this show at the same time, because when she does like her performances, I feel like I do that.
You just do them in private.
Yeah.
And then the other aspect is the abstraction, the sort of paring down, but also the fact that it came that way around, that it really came from the music. Maybe that lent or encouraged you to be abstract, because music is inherently, an abstract, at least. Music without lyrics is an abstract medium.
Yeah, but we've been talking about that. That has been maybe the most important thing for us during the last 2 years. What music really is, and that there's no answer. Although Hans was at the club the other. Oh, am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, say.
He was at a club the other night, and he came home and he was like, and I was dancing. And after a while, I realized for like a split second, why music? Like, why do we like it so much? And then like, because we are music. And it's just kind of vibrations. And then going out of that and thinking it was silly. Yeah. I think we talked about that yesterday, that it's only in the now.
Maybe that's the thing with the show, because we have a different version of it. We have the neons, which are like waveforms or light, and they are, I guess, frozen in time because they exist in the room. And then you have the animation that also exists on the wall, but they are always moving, so always changing. And then we have the music, which is always changing, you can't see. So we have all these versions of the same thing, more or less.
It seems to me like I guess the abstract elements are like they're either DNA or cosmic. It sounds all a bit hippie, but it's not. It's very real, but it's this sort of primary energy, whereas for me, I guess the bird is like a surrogate human. It's like contingent, sort of clumsy, joking reality, and then there's this sort of essence that's there in the rest of the installation.
Yes, exactly.
But the music, what are the sources of your music? Because it's very distinctive. It's not like, I mean, there are resonances with other things that I heard, but it's very particular. Yeah,
before with the narrative music, the narrative films, it was more inspired by places, situations. It could be if the film takes part of a special place, I would be inspired by folk music or something like that.
The glass piece at Camden was obviously very crystalline. It had that sense of an equivalent, almost a sonic equivalent to the
sculptures. And now it's more abstract. Also, now it's more bodiless or something, maybe you can call it. And pure electronic doesn't come from a real place. It's not real instruments anymore. It's just more, all music is waveforms, but it doesn't have...
Isn't it? Is there other particular kinds of music that you listen to or like?
It comes from me listening to techno music a lot, and it comes from, I get a lot of inspiration from actually like British 90s electronica music, the experimental music that was very big everywhere, but it came a lot from the UK, like FX Twin and all these producers who worked with the... It's not so much about the melodies, it's more about how you work with the sounds and production.
So it's not surprising, I guess, because it's, I guess, a little bit more like art than other kinds of music in the way that it's a very free zone. I mean, with art, there's no, there are givens and there are conventions and cliches, but it's also a very liberating kind of practice, because everything is contingent, everything has to be thought out, the scale, the size, even the location, as opposed to, again, sort of generalizations. Theatre generally happens on a stage. Television generally happens on a screen. But with art, you're kind of open, and with that kind of music too, there's a sense of breaking boundaries and doing what's not
and it's
predicted.
nice to do it in art setting. So I don't do it for clubs. Like I also do techno music for clubs. But this is very liberating, because I do whatever I want to. There's no formula to it.
Mm-hmm. Do you make music separately from the? So you're making music to perform on stage?
Yes. So I perform on stage, and it's dance music. Has a very specific purpose. You listen to it in the club, and people are dancing, which is also fun because you have this set of rules, and you work within that. For instance, it has to be danceable, otherwise people leave. So, and it shouldn't.
Seems to be a common, I guess, theme or image almost of sort of flowing. Actually, we were talking about this really good essay by a young curator, Eric Crosby, is that right? Who curated the Walker Art Centre show parade, and he points out that in your stop motion animations, apart from the figures and their interrelation, there's a lot of flowing going on, isn't there? There's a lot of animals or figures will be cut open and liquids will kind of ooze out. So
everybody's crying.
Tears, or milk pouring, or So
well, it's not so far from this exhibition.
Exactly,
it's like you just take away some stuff. I mean, just and then you have it.
It's more abstract.
It's bound to happen.
Yeah.
And maybe also that's why music, it's got a kind of inherent musicality because it's about this sense of flow.
And it's interesting also the animations, since they are stop motion and they all have they are very rhythmic for some reason. I don't know, but it's funny when I'm looking for the tempo for the music. I always find it because all films have a specific tempo, the way you animate them.
Yeah.
So like the films in the pots, the ones that are more like rain, they have a much higher tempo, and the ones who are slower, they have a slower tempo even. I don't know how you manage to do that, because you're doing it so slowly. It's like listening to one song over two months.
But then we come back.
It was very difficult to find a tempo, but there is a tempo in it.
Yeah, but then we come back to is there control or no? Or what is the difference between control and no control? I don't know, and that there's so much that we don't know. I mean, the conscious choices and the unconscious choices. So
it was interesting now, and I guess it's a kind of theme of what we've been talking about, that there are continuities with what you've done before, obviously, but now you seem to be working with image and also story. There are still stories, but they're a little bit abstracted, and with object, and the objects are not just externalized, but sort of central to the project, and time and space, and all of these things are
just the small
equal material,
small things, small subjects.
But they're really those are your materials. It's not just animation. It's not just music, but you're really wanting to mobilize all of these different materials into some total work, which is very exciting, very challenging.
Yeah. Sometimes I have some, because the work we're doing right now in the studio or at home is sculpture and light. It doesn't actually have, this work that we're working on now doesn't have music. And then I had a thought that if I should pull back and not do it, and then having had that thought, I realized that was another thought saying that is ludicrous to
censor yourself, or what?
Yeah, to censor yourself when you. Yeah, no.
I don't think you're ever going to do that, are you?
That's no, I wouldn't do that. But then just having the thought of it, and but I think you have to follow. You have to follow where the work leads you, which is where the interest is. I mean, and if there will be censorship before a work is done, then you're then I will be in the wrong field.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us anything about work that you're making, or do you want us to wait and see it?
Well, I realized that it is
walked into a trap now.
Yeah, I forgot the word, so maybe I shouldn't say. Vad heter det? No, I forgot it in Swedish too, so obviously it doesn't want to come out.
Fine, well, we won't push you on that, but maybe we should see if anybody has comments or questions from the audience?
I think what's very interesting for the viewer with the latest work, because I saw your exhibition at the Camden Art Center several years ago. And here, of course, the experience with the glass there for the viewer, it was more about light and about, feeling about the texture. But here I feel quite interesting in the pot installation that the audience has also kind of moving around and looking inside this experience of really looking deeply into the pot.
Yeah, and it takes some effort. Yes. You can't just stand back and...
Because then you miss the whole experience. Yeah. But if you go closer to each of them and actually, bend on it, I feel it quite,
Yeah, I both like that and I don't like that, because I can be very, very lazy. That if it's not really presented just in front of me, I would just walk. I would probably, if I haven't made this work, I would probably not have gone into the room, except for the music, which pulls me in. But at the same time, yes, I like that.
Well, I like that too. It's like a little secret. You have to do something.
Yeah, and it makes you. It forces. Like you have to make an effort. But I still don't know if that's a good or a bad thing.
I think it's good.
You get a reward for your effort.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Unless you're disappointed, then you didn't have to get a reward.
I was wondering, you both talk about your work process as something which is in a way out of your control, but partly in, and but that's related very much to the form. I was wondering how you relate to your intention. Like, do you start with the intention or a set of rules for yourself, and does it develop? Does it change? How do you feel about what came out? I'm curious.
When I start with the music, I usually have an intention. It might be very vague, but that can change in 1 second, really, because I'm starting with something, and then I find a sound or something that I feel fits, and then I completely forgot about the initial intention. So, and then I just follow. I think for me, it's the most important thing is to know when I found it, and original intention then just destroys, actually.
Yeah, if you would force yourself to stay with it.
Yeah, if I'm trying tonight, no, I gotta stay with this.
Yeah, for me it's the same. I usually have for me it usually starts with a really strong urge or a really strong interest, where I feel like I don't know something, and I need to go into that. What is it? What is it that I'm so interested in? And sometimes it's a stronger idea, and sometimes it's a less strong idea. But it usually it alters during the making of it. And there I come back to not being that skilled, because if I was really skilled, but it would be a disadvantage
You'd
for
have
me.
nothing to discover. Really.
No, then I wouldn't have anything to discover, and then it wouldn't be any point of it. But then when I come to the end, well, where Hans comes to the end, he is usually super happy, and he can listen to what he has done for like hours. And I come to the end of what I have done, I usually become very, very sad. And there is a split of like where it started, where it ended up, and where I would have wanted it to be. And I have to take some time before I can be okay with that it wasn't exactly what I wanted, or that I didn't come up with the answer, or that the urge just moved into something else. But some said, I don't remember who said it, someone said that artist never finishes the work, they just drop it and move on, and then probably pick it up later.
Yeah.
So
okay. I think it also has probably to do with the fact that the clash between your labor process. Like you are very laborious, very material, and you are fast. It's also an interesting clash you have in this digitalizing world.
Yes,
it's really important for the tension in your work that you have these very different methods.
It's amazing you get on so well together.
Yeah.
Considering from different planets, really, of work process, but I guess they do fuse together.
at least when there's shame that for Hans, that he felt shame that he would work so quickly, and I would feel anger that he was when that fell away, when it was just like being like, oh my God, thank God that Hans' process is faster than mine. and then that tension then that tension isn't there anymore. That's just
a technical question. The paint you use, the one that you wipe off for the animations on the tables, what is it?
It's oil crayon, like really regular crayons with oil, and so I draw it on a kind of latexy surface that is black, and then I have like a palette knife, is it called that? Scrape it off, and then I have to use some wipes with regular kitchen oil to wipe it clean. And
you move the line along, or wipe the whole thing clean and draw again?
I do the line, take a picture, and then I do the next line kind of on top of it, and I scrape really carefully to not wipe, to take away the right line. Yeah.
Wow, that is slow.
Yes.
It is, but it's also something really nice with the texture, and I really do like it.
Because it was only when we blew up those frames,
that's what every picture looks like.
See how soft and textured it is.
Yeah. Every picture looks like that. So.
Okay, well, we can continue talking. There's, I think, more food or coffee or whatever downstairs, so we'll continue then informally. Thank you all again very much for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Nathalie and Hans. Thank you.
Thanks.